A very good evening. Prashant, start. Would like to, before we start, may I request everyone to put their mobiles on mute or silent mode. May I request our President, Mr. Prashant Kumar, our President-elect, Mr. Chandyok, our Chief Guest, Honorable Justice Rishikesh Roy, and we are very lucky to have Honorable Justice Koteshwar Singh also from Supreme Court as a special moment for us, a surprise visit. If he can also come on the dais, please. Our Vice President, Ms. Rachna Srivastava, and Dr. Anindita Pujari. I think the Attorney General for India is on his way, so. And Mr. Shyam Devan, our Vice President. Sir, Lordship, please. May I request our, we have our Attorney General also. May I request Mr. Maratha, our Treasurer, to give a bouquet to the Chief Guest. Our Joint General Secretary, Mr. Saurabh Mishra, to Honorable Justice Koteshwar Singh. Huh? And Mr. Mukesh Singh, to our guest of honor, the Attorney General for India. So with permission, can we start? May I request Vice President Ms. Rachna Srivastava to give the welcome address.
Namaskar, good evening to all. Honorable Justice Rishikesh Roy, Judge Supreme Court of India, Honorable Justice Koteshwar Singh, Judge Supreme Court of India, Shri R. Venkat Ramani, Attorney General for India, Mr. Chandyok, President-elect Bar Association of India, Mr. Prashant Kumar, President, Bar Association of India, Mr. Shyam Devan, Vice President and President, Law Asia, senior members of the Bar, my colleagues, State Secretaries, members of the Executive Committee of Bar Association of India, ladies and gentlemen. This day we celebrate as a Lawyers of India Day. The 3rd December, on 3rd December, we remember our first President of India, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, and to honor and commemorate his memory, this day is celebrated throughout India as Lawyers of India Day. Dr. Rajendra Prasad, who was the first president, was also an eminent lawyer, and he was also the chairman of the Constituent Assembly, which adopted the Constitution, and through his efforts, the Constitution came into existence, and India became republic. The Bar Association of India was also inaugurated by Dr. Rajendra Prasad, the first president of India, in the eminent presence of Dr. Radhakrishnan, who was the first vice president, Mr. Nehru, Pandit Nehru, the prime minister, and Mr. Justice B.P. Sinha, the first Chief Justice of India. Mr. Setalvad, M.C. Setalvad was the first Attorney General of India, and he was the first president of the Bar Association of India also. Today, to commemorate the memory of Dr. Rajendra Prasad and to celebrate the Lawyers of India Day, we are honoring 5 distinguished eminent persons of, from the law field, and who have contributed and continues to contribute for the development of law and for promotion of rule of law. Mr. C.U. Singh, Senior Advocate, Mr. Gaurav Banerjee, Senior Advocate, Shri C.R. Dua, Founder and Chairman of Dua Associates, Ms. Farzana, President, Bombay Incorporated Law Society, and Shri Roshan Lal Jain from Rajasthan. Our chief guest for today's function is none other than Honorable Justice Hrishikesh Roy, who is a distinguished judge of the Supreme Court of India, who is known for his significant contribution to the Indian judiciary, focusing on the principles of equity and fairness. Justice Roy began his judicial career with his appointment as an additional judge of the Guwahati High Court in October 2006. He later served as the Chief Justice of Kerala High Court from August 2018 until his elevation to the Supreme Court on May 23, 2019. It is indeed a matter of great pride that we are graced by your presence, Justice Roy. A very special welcome to you. We are honored to have the gracious presence of Justice Koteshwar Singh also amongst us. A very warm welcome to you, Justice Koteshwar Singh. Our guest of honor today is Shri R. Venkatramani, Attorney General for India. He is also ex officio Chairman of the Bar Association of India. A very warm welcome to you, Venkatramani ji. It is my privilege and honor to extend a heartfelt welcome to each one of you in this distinguished gathering. Thank you very much. Welcome once again.
May I now request our President-elect, Mr. Amarjit Singh Chandiok, to say a few words.
I must say thank you, Bedi Sahab. I am not going to repeat your name because that coincides with me. My lords, honorable judges of the Supreme Court, the Attorney General, my friends Prashant and others on the dais, off the dais, I think the greatest thing that we need to achieve is how do we bring back the values that we had and Dr. Rajendra Prasad gave us. And I think by doing this, the Bar Association of India reminds us the values that our leaders had, that our lawyers had, and how do we bring them back. In fact, today is the need of the hour that when I tell a youngster this is what used to happen in the court, he's really surprised. Because he has not seen all that happening. So we need to remind ourselves what Dr. Rajendra Prasad as a lawyer was, what he did for the country, what values did he adopt, and how did we go on with it. And I think Bar Association of India every year celebrates this day by felicitating, honoring our members of the community who deserve and who have contributed to the rule of law. Each one of them, names have already been taken. I don't want to repeat them. In every field that we see, they have contributed. And contributed is not just that they have said it by hook and crook. They have put in their best, worked extremely hard to reach this position. Therefore, it's time that we must recognize them. It's time that we must look at them. Of course, on behalf of each one of you sitting here, I must congratulate each one of you for this award. The very fact that the honorable judges are here with us, it's actually a combination of bench and bar that can only bring some revolution in this country. We nearly need it. We need to look at ourselves. We need to look at our courts. We need to look at that litigant who's knocking at our doors. How do we bring justice to it? And we see today things are changing. In fact, I think 4 days ago, there was a book release by Honorable Mr. Justice Sikri and Mr. Batra of insolvency with mediation, which is unheard of earlier. We are now moving towards that direction. Our commercial courts test us what we should do in mediation. We have MCPC in the Supreme Court. We have court-annexed mediations, yet conflicts are increasing day by day. And my experience today tells me that the peer mediation is a must today. I think the schools and colleges, the disputes that we are having, they then give rise to everything that as they grow up. Therefore, we need to teach them how do we need solutions. How do we reach out to justice easily, inexpensive, and less time. Time is cutting. There are dockets after dockets in our courts. Many people feel that why should there be so much of backlog? In fact, to me, it looks that at least still people of this country believe in rule of law, and that's why the dockets are increasing. However, we need to find ways and means. How do we reduce it? Maybe number of honorable judges, maybe infrastructure we need to develop. We need to develop everything that is possible. And we as lawyers need an obligation on ourselves to ensure how do we resolve our disputes and actually suggest solutions when we are in the court or even outside the court. We welcome you back. Welcome you to this function this evening. Thank you for sparing your time. Looking forward to see you next year with more awardees before us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Chandyok. May I now request Mr. Shyam Devan, our Vice President and President of Law Asia, to say a few words.
Thanks. Justice Rishikesh Roy, Justice Koteshwar Singh, Attorney General Venkatramani, distinguished eminence, ladies and gentlemen on the dais, off the dais, good evening. Very quickly, 2 quick vignettes which I thought I'd share. Not because you don't know about them, but because I learned about them only very recently. The first one's on Dr. Rajendra Prasad. And Rachna mentioned as to why we celebrate and mark today his birth anniversary as Lawyers for India Day. But I was reviewing a script for a podcast on Nandlal Bose. And as you know, Nandlal Bose and his team illustrated the Constitution of India. So the researchers were sort of getting to the bottom of it. How did this happen? And it was quite remarkable, and it involved Dr. Rajendra Prasad. So initially, when the Constituent Assembly was working, there was really no plan to have an illustrated constitution. But the correspondence of Dr. Rajendra Prasad reveals that in October of 1949, he writes to Nandlal Bose. Nandlal Bose by then was very well known, and some of you may remember that beautiful painting of Gandhi with the staff, which is iconic. And that was a Nandlal Bose picture. So he had a connection with Gandhi. And he, of course, was at Shantiniketan and so therefore connected to Tagore. But Rajendra Prasad wrote to him in October 1949 that would you engage in this artistic, political, and really important venture of illustrating the Constitution. And he writes back and says, yes, of course, it would be his honor. And he starts work in December 1949. And you can imagine how quickly he and his team had to work because, barely was the sort of paintings dry that the whole Constitution had to be calligraphed. And then by 26 January, it was right there to be adopted and to come into full force. So that was the Dr. Rajendra Prasad story. The other one, I pick up on what Mr. Chandyok mentioned a short while ago, which involves, I think, values, the bar, and the bench. And this is about a case which is, it's of course in the law reports, it's known as Gigi Boy. And it involved a tricky situation because there was a challenge to an act which had been upheld by the Bombay High Court, an amendment in Maharashtra, at that time Bombay, to the Land Acquisition Act, which prescribed that all valuation would be on 1st of January 1948. Bombay High Court upheld it, came up to the Supreme Court. The bench was presided over by Chief Justice Rajendra Prasad. And, Justice Rajendra Prasad was member of a society which might have benefited from the land acquisition. So it became a very tricky situation. Who was to tell the Chief Justice of India to recuse? So Purushottam Trikamdas, senior advocate, was briefed in the matter because many people who were otherwise engaged declined. And he raised an objection. And he raised it. And Chief Justice Rajendra Prasad was initially disinclined, but he turned to Attorney General Daftari. And Daftari informed him that, look, in the Supreme Court of India, it must look completely fair. And so even if there is a slight perception of or a possibility of bias, then we shouldn't. And to the credit of Chief Justice Rajendra Prasad, he recused from the case. It was decided eventually by Justice Subba Rao, and the Bombay High Court decision was reversed. So I thought I should just share that with you. I learned about this from Avinash Rana, who is a doyen of the Bombay Bar. He's at 95 and he's furiously penning and completing a book called Miscellany at Law. And I was just reviewing a draft in which he narrates this incident about Purushottam Trikamdas. What he isn't writing in the book, but which I will share with you, but because he mentioned it to me, and when you read the law report, it's quite interesting. Because, lawyers, all of us are trained. So there's Purushottam Trikamdas taking up this objection. But also on the same side was another leader of the Bombay Bar, J.C. Bhatt, and Nani Palkhiwala. And before Purushottam Trikamdas could articulate the objection, they stood up and said, we are not identifying with this particular objection to be made. So Avinash Rana says that, but that's the way it works in court. We have to just ensure that we are eventually in the service of the client. So thank you very much, and I trust this is going to be a splendid evening where we honor some of our distinguished colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dewan, for sharing that anecdote with us. And now may I request our President, Mr. Prashant Kumar, to say something.
Honorable Justice Rishikesh Roy, Honorable Justice Koteshwar Singh, Attorney General Shri Venkatramani, my colleagues on the dais and off the dais, and the special day is for you, all the 5 awardees we have chosen to honor today, very well deserved. Shyam, taking from Purushottam Das Trikamdas, in Indian Advocate, the report on the inauguration of Bar Association of India was written by him. So he was the reporter for the Indian Advocate, the Journal of the Bar Association of India. Friends, we all know Dr. Rajendra Prasad as our first president of the Republic, and also that he was a lawyer. Rachana and Shyam both told you about it. But more than that, Dr. Rajendra Prasad's role during the interim period, when interim government was there, Constituent Assembly was working, and under the interim government with Jawahar Nehru, with Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel and all, there were so many issues which were discussed. And they are published in several volumes, around 42 volumes of correspondence and select documents of Dr. Rajendra Prasad. And I had the honor to work on these volumes with the publisher. And one of the exchanges in 1947, immediately after August 1947, was the situation of Delhi, where some neo-Muslims were brought in, and there were various news, passions were inflamed, and Dr. Rajendra Prasad wrote to Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, saying that Hindus have a sense of insecurity and there are demands coming to grant them firearms so that they can protect themselves. Sardar responded to the letter and said that my reports on the ground are to the contrary. Muslims are equally afraid. Already some arms licenses have been issued to the Hindus. We must look at it as a law and order situation. And I think if we grant more arms to either of them, we will be failing in our duties and we will be leading to situations which none of us wants to continue. So immediately Dr. Rajendra Prasad noted and he said, yes, then what we have to do is to publish a clarification on these misleading reports, and Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel accepted the suggestion. So in this situation, what it shows was kind of respect for each other, camaraderie, but more than that, sagacity, statesmanship, and to serve the nation. So whether we serve as lawyers, whether we serve on the bench, when very difficult questions impinging on the rule of law come, it is not just the interpretation of law and the Constitution, it is the sagacity and statesmanship to see how the law and order can prevail, how the best of qualities from the citizenry can come forward, rather than doing things in a manner that creates to further chaos. So nowadays we have all these icons being, picked up by various political parties to project various causes. But if we study deeply, we'll find they only stood for the humanity, they only stood for the country as a republic, as a peaceful republic. So that is one thing which we want to project, that not just we celebrate this day, we must look into the body of literature associated with our founding fathers, including Dr. Rajendra Prasad, and learn from that how they dealt with such critical period of India's history. And that's how the nation stands today together. And that's how we have to ensure that it continues that way, with harmony, under the Constitution, with respect for law and human rights. So friends, we award every year 5 very distinguished individuals, and professional excellence is the basic criteria, but along with that, integrity and service is another criteria. I hope nobody will disagree with the 5 names which the Bar Association has come forward with, that each one is worthy of receiving these awards. I thank all my colleagues to have made this wonderful function possible, and especially the office. We have, each year we publish the book, and this year we had a suggestion that we must also invite our worthy awardees to give a podcast interview so that their experiences can be there in public domain, from which younger professionals can learn and emulate them and see why they were worthy of such accolades. Lastly, friends, the Bar Association of India had a very eventful year. We have completed a series of memorandum of understandings with various national professions across the world. And our building is going to come up. In January, we will start having courses. And the first course the Bar Association of India is going to start in collaboration with the forensic experts is capacity building in the area of forensic science, because the new criminal laws require an enhanced understanding and application of forensics in legal matters, in criminal matters. So Bar Association of India is taking lead in starting a course to train lawyers in the forensic sciences and how to use forensic evidence, how to evaluate forensic evidence. So friends, with this, I thank all of you for coming here and our worthy guests for taking time to grace this occasion. Thank you.
Thank you, President. May I now request our guest of honor, Mr. R. Venkatramani, to say a few words.
Let me first express my delight and pleasure in inviting and treating my worthy comrades at the bar, Ms. Farzana, Siu, CR, Gaurav, and Roshan, in that order. It's interesting to note that when we rub shoulders with our comrades in law, outside the courtroom, that we come to know many wonderful things they've achieved in their life. I never knew that CU was a farmer, was a journalist, and I think he must have learned all that is worthy of learning in these two activities. You deal with land and deal with mind. What a wonderful thing you have done in your life. I think you deserve Bharat Citizens of India this honor, probably a little late in life, but better late than never. I thank you so much for being with us. I don't think the time for speech making, but every year when Bharat Citizens of India assemble here to greet and shake hands with people who achieved in life, I only look at examples elsewhere. In India, we have not for long looked at the genre of literature, where we try to capture the lives and accomplishments of people in the bar who have made a world of difference to the evolution and the working of the Constitution and general laws of our country. The United States excels in that regard. You had Cooley's constitutional law, which is a product of Cooley's contribution to US constitutional law in a big way. And yesterday, a book landed on my table, Clarence Darrow, the great criminal lawyer in US. And it contains the whole literature of his speeches and articles. So as you plunge into them, you find that what a mind so committed to the profession of law can do in a wonderful way to steer and to clear the ways of law and life. So therefore, Bharat Citizens of India will take pride year after year to look at each and every one of us who care for law, justice, and above all, to go beyond our little private concerns of earning a livelihood. And I think that's, of course, important, but I think all of us who are here today are in the class of going beyond our private concerns. And that's where I'll just conclude by the remark. My venerable teacher, Professor Madhav Menon, who's always remembered, and I remember him every day in my life. And one day I asked my question, why don't we nationalize the legal profession? What will happen if the legal profession is nationalized? It was a very, thought-provoking question. I was wondering what will happen. Can it really happen at all? But put it differently, if all of us are committed to the majesty of law and the evolution of constitution, that what Gandhiji's talisman talks about, the last women and men are able to say that I am comfortable in my country because justice is at my doorsteps and justice is without a cost. And if therefore we are committed to that, what more better can happen? And that's the nationalization of the legal profession in a very profound sense, not in the material or in the regulatory sense. And I'm sure that Bharat Citizens of India will continue to dig deep more and more into the professional wealth of our country and find more and more even younger elements in our bar who has made a world of difference by contributing to the growth of law and justice. I see many of them here. I'm sure each one of you will be identified sooner or later. My very private, warm regards and congratulations to each and every one of you here. And I think as we get closer by this kind of interaction, we would probably have a higher level of bonding in trying to what one may call lawyers for social justice. Thank you so much.
Before I call our chief guest, we have also amongst us our special guest, Justice Koteshwar Singh. So may I request him also to say a few words to us.
First of all, thank you very much for upgrading me from the floor to dais. And I was never, it was, I just wanted to attend the function because when I saw this card, that is a felicitation of very eminent lawyers, and of course, Brother Justice Rishikesh, who have a long association. He also gave a speech. I said, I must not miss this function, with a little realizing that I will be upgraded here. Thank you very much. Of course, I have not come prepared to give any speech even for a minute also, but then nevertheless, since I have been asked, certain things come up in my mind whenever I speak in public. I've spent my time, formative time as a lawyer, then as a judge in High Court, and of course recently elevated as a judge of the Supreme Court. Now what I see is that when you say talk of Indian judiciary, you always give that the credit to the court, the judges, the High Court or Supreme Court. But all this credit comes because of the hard work and input made by this, learned, very, very wonderful lawyers. You see, some of the landmark judgments of which Indian courts are known for. When I have visited many other countries outside, I said, we look up to your jurisdiction, your evolution of PIL, and there's so many other jurisdiction, environmental law. But then, what the court has been able to do is because of the input, wonderful input given by the lawyers. I was just thinking, yesterday only I was just, when I see these newspapers, what is happening across the country, how we have been able to maintain a very, very stable judicial system is, when I look around the neighboring countries, some of the neighboring countries immediate, they have 3 constitutions, 65, 56, 62 and 73. Nearby also, more or less, they have the 72 constitution. A lot of churning have taken place. But it is our Indian constitution which has remained solid. It's a role, of course, where the lawyers and judges have played equally to make this a very stable institution, to keep this country stable. And I feel that the legal system which we have evolved in these years, 75 years of existence, is one of the most important substructure, I would say, on which our Indian nationality or Indian nation thrives. Very few institutions, in fact, and it also perhaps the last resort, and there's so much of confidence in the people. Because sometimes when I see, I'm of course sitting in Supreme Court for a few months only, I said we are spending 3-4 hours on dealing with small matters. I think, are we supposed to be doing these matters which according to many will say appear to be petty matters, but it also indicates the confidence of the people in this country as a last resort. And that the fact that we have been able to achieve this, come to a very solid foundation with equally very, I would consider a future which I consider not to be certainly, I would not certainly see from a pessimistic view. In spite of various challenges we are seeing every day across the country, this judicial institution is going to play a big role in making this country great, in which, as I mentioned again, the role of the lawyers have been always wonderful and effective, and also help in solidifying this institution. I will not, of course, there is not much scope for me to say, except to say that to convey my personal congratulations to those. I was just seeing the paper here. I can see the doyen of the bar who have been given recognition for their wonderful works, and today, of course, we'll be seeing those. This tradition continues, whereby this Indian judicial system, which have been strengthened by the wonderful works done by the lawyers. Thank you very much for giving this opportunity.
Thank you, Your Lordship, and sorry for taking it by surprise, but we wanted to have your wisdom, your share with us. Now may I request our chief guest, Honorable Justice Rishikesh Roy, to come and say a few words to the.
Mr. Prashant Kumar, the President of the Bar Association of India, Mr. Amarjit Singh Chandyo, the President-elect, Ms. Rachna Srivastava, the Vice President, Mr. Shyam Diwan, the Vice President and President of Law Asia, Mr. Venkatramani, the Attorney General of India, Dr. Anindita Pujari, Vice President of BAI, Amarjit Singh Bedi, the General Secretary, and distinguished members of the legal fraternity, and most especially the awardees. My compliments to the distinguished awardees, Chandra Uday Singh, C.R. Dua, Ms. Farzana, Gaurav Banerjee, Roshan Lal Jain. What a pleasant moment perhaps for all of you to get a recognition from members of our own fraternity. My compliments and congratulations to all 5 of you. I must, before I begin, tell you of the 2 vice presidents for whom you are having to suffer my presence in today's event. The first vice president is the senior counsel, Rachna Srivastava, who, after I expressed some difficulty, practically bullied me to attend this Bar Association of India event. The second vice president is Mr. Shyam Diwan, and he doesn't know what his crime is. I happen to have listened to him speak about paying a tribute to the Doyen of the Bar, Fali Nariman, and he spoke of Fali's commanding presence in court just like a star actor in theater or movies. Taking a cue from Shyam, my speech today will have something about lawyers being performers as they do on stage, but for the lawyer, the stage is the setup in the courtrooms. As judge, I'm quite used to addressing lawyers in a different setting, one where I listen and the lawyers who we are gathered to celebrate capture the talk time much more. It is indeed refreshing to be in a room where no one is requesting for an adjournment. It is also a great honor to be speaking to such a distinguished crowd of lawyers. After all, as judges, we do not get to sit in a room where no one charges by the hour. As Thomas Jefferson once remarked, it is the trade of lawyers to question everything, yield nothing, and to talk by the hour. In fact, ours is the only profession where people are impressed by our ability to turn a simple yes or no question into a 3-hour debate. Today we are celebrating Lawyers of India, coinciding with the birthday of Dr. Rajendra Prasad. The court, as you know, hear arguments of lawyers, wise or not so wise, from young and not so young lawyers, some indifferent and occasionally gripping. In fact, every day in court, we witness meticulously prepared performances of lawyers, one that mirrors the artistry of live theater, albeit played out within the solemn confines of a courtroom. While advocating a cause in a courtroom, like a total theater personality, the lawyer becomes the scriptwriter, the lead actor. He's also thinking and strategizing constantly to communicate to the court in the most effective way, balancing his manner and modulation to be both persuasive and respectful. There would certainly be dramatical pauses and the occasional theatrical gestures, leaving us judges wondering how long before this lawyer will wrap up his brief submissions. One can visualize the courtroom as the performing space for lawyers, where legends like Nani Palkiwala, Ram Jethmalani, Fali Nariman, Anil Diwan, and so many others thrived and excelled. Last time I saw Anil Diwan was being wheeled into the Akshara Theatre here, welcomed by Mrs. Jalabala Vaidya for a performance. And I have seen other lawyers, the doyen of yesteryear, S.N. Kakkar, I remember, and so many others who take an interest in theatre performance. And as one might visualize, each lawyer in making his submissions does it in his own style, present their rehearsed lines imploringly and reassuringly. And the better ones amongst the lawyers does so with perfect diction and consummate ease. In the court battles, just like the game of fencing, lawyers thirst and parry while dealing with the other side, not to disable or maim them, but to score brownie points from the judges. The lawyers, as one can easily see, are great playwrights and take great pride in their choice of words and expression in making submissions before the court. So much so, I heard Nani Palkiwala describing his chosen words as terms of art, and I've heard it from other lawyers as well. On one occasion, Ram Jethmalani disdainfully suggested that if the contrary interpretation is accepted, it will do great violence to the English language. In the courtroom performance of the arguing counsel, like in theatre, we have the assisting lawyers acting as prompters. Occasionally, we also have, in the shape of an amicus, a Vidushak-like character who is the only medium between the key characters in the case, the storyline, and the audience. Then we have the court masters, who by announcing out loud the item number, pulls up the court screen for the proceedings to begin. Also on display are the light technicians, who focuses on the particular passage of the cited judgment onto the judge's monitor. We must also not forget the spot boys amongst the court's crew, who scurry back and forth carrying books and files into the courtrooms. In all the theatrics, where do the judge figure? If you want to be a bit charitable to the judge, you can describe him as a master of the ceremony or as the play's director. They can also be referred to as the umpire in a game, ensuring a level playing field to secure a just outcome. Those who have a lesser opinion of the judge's role may just call him the person who pulls down the curtain in a case in course of the proceedings, and may also pull down a counsel or two. Talking about performance in court, one must remember few memorable ones of Mr. C.K. Daftri, a really sharp mind, as most of you would know. Once he was appearing in High Court, and opposing him was the doyen Fali Nariman. When Fali had finished his argument, Daftari rose to reply. And being the showman that he was, Daftari coughed, spluttered, and spluttered out, "My learned friend." He then again cleared his throat and again said, "My learned friend," and again uncharacteristically cleared his throat. The presiding judge, showing concern, said, "Mr. Daftari, why don't you sit down and take a sip of water?" Daftari, who was waiting for this very opening, said, "No, no, my lord. Nothing wrong with my throat. It is the arguments of my learned friend. I simply can't swallow them." In discourses amongst the legal fraternity, the celebrated case of Keshwanand Bharti is often spoken about. In 1972, Nani Palkiola was arguing before the full court of all 13 judges of the Supreme Court. Midway, Nani grumbled to Daftari that he could barely get to explain a legal proposition without being interrupted by one judge or the other. Daftari, being the good brother, assured Nani that he would do something to prevent the judge's interruption in the next day's hearing. After the weekend rolled by and hearing commenced, there was magical transformation. The judges listened to Palkhiwala without interruption, and Palkhiwala made rapid progress with his argument. The reason for the judges' changed approach was revealed later. Friday evening, Daftari sought an appointment with Chief Justice Sikri. After pleasantries were exchanged, he complimented Sikri that the hearings conducted by them had attracted attention from far and wide. In fact, a little girl had come to see the proceedings with her father and inquired from him as to who that young man was who repeatedly kept interrupting the 13 well-dressed gentlemen. CJI Sikri got the message and conveyed the impression to his benchmates. That is why Palkhiwala was allowed to proceed without any irksome disturbance. This was Daftari's personal contribution to the emergence of the basic structure doctrine in Indian jurisprudence. The performance of lawyers are such that they have often garnered comments of authors and playwrights. I am reminded of Franz Kafka's The Trial, where Kafka critiques the legal system and the frustration and absurdities faced by the protagonist, Joseph K. In a humorous exchange, expressed his frustration with the legal process. He says, "It is like being on a treadmill. My lawyer runs and runs, but gets nowhere." Fali Nariman, who once remarked, "Lawyers in India never retire. They simply drop dead," and proved it himself. He completed his written submission in a constitutional bench matter case late at night before deciding to call on the creator. His performance in court until his last breath must rank amongst the thespians of the legal profession. In courtrooms, we constantly see lawyers showcasing their skills in the dramatic arts. May I therefore conclude by suggesting to the audience the following random names: Tom Cruise, Morgan Freeman, Jack Nicholson, Amitabh Bachchan, Nasiruddin Shah, also Audrey Hepburn, Meryl Streep, Madhuri Dixit, Shabana Azmi, Sharmila Tagore. My parting question for the BI members is, who amongst the current lot of lawyers can be compared for their courtroom histrionics to any of these legendary actors and actresses? Let there be a feel-good award in your next annual function for the most voted lawyer, let there be a feel-good award in your next annual function for the most voted lawyer with great theatrical abilities. And I'm sure your incoming President Chandyok would not mind sponsoring such an award. But one caveat, I implore you not to link any of the current judges with any of the great theater or film directors. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Lordship, for comparing theatre and the interplay between lawyers, courtroom, and different role played by support staff. Now may I request our Vice President, Dr. Anandita Pujari, to give the concluding remarks.
Good evening, everyone. After what we just heard, I don't think I have anything to say, because when we learn lawyering, which we keep learning every day, one of the first or basic principles that we are told is when to stop. So I would rather prefer to go and follow that principle, that probably it's time when we call our awardees and honor them, because like every year, in fact, this is not an unusual year where we have a surprise guest on our dais. It so happens, maybe just by luck, the intent with which the Bar Association organizes its event, every Lawyers of India Day, we end up having beautiful surprise guests with us, be it judges, be it the dons of the bar, not only from Delhi, but from outside with us, because it's truly a celebration of the brotherhood and sisterhood, the collegiality that we all share. It's a celebration of that. And coming back to, since we are remembering Dr. Rajendra Prasad, it's like a relay race where I'm being handed over the baton now, but I have to remember that just like him, Dr. Prasad, he was a great listener and not a great speaker, so to say. And Ramachandra Guha in his book says, he did an unbelievable task of presiding over the Constituent Assembly and listening to all the great orators that we had and the volumes of book that we read and the dimensions and trajectories of arguments that the Constituent Assembly really went into. And assimilating all that and chairing that kind of a grand session itself was something that is unbelievable. So as lawyers, maybe it's time we learn to be good listeners. And also, another thing that I'm reminded of is when Mr. Chandyok was talking about mediation and pure mediation. Maybe Rajendra Prasad's life was an epitome of that, because he was unanimously elected to head the Constituent Assembly. And because of that, he was called the Ajat Satru, a person having no enemies. Maybe each one of us can think of at least striving towards that. And with that, I think it's time I call my colleague, Mr. Bedi, to start the ceremony of awards so that we can celebrate the life and achievement of each of our senior colleagues. With that, thank you everyone for being here and making this one more memorable event. Thank you.
So we want to start the program of the award, but before that, our photographer has requested one group photo for the dignitaries on the dais. Anandita. Now may I call all the dignitaries on the dais to come on the, so that the awards can be given here rather than on the dais itself. And may I request Mr. Shyam Diwan to come and introduce the awardees and give a little bit background about them while the awards are being handed. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, about Chandar. Okay. Thank you very much.
So our first awardee is Shri Chandar Uday Singh. He's senior advocate.
Okay, it's my pleasure to just say a few words of introduction for Chandar. Chandar is, apart from being an exceptional lawyer, I want to just flag 4 or 5 of his very special qualities. Apart from that, huge number of cases and that he's done. Number 1, I would regard him as amongst the most fearless members of the bar. So for his courage and for standing up for the values he believes in a huge number of pro bono assignments. But there are 2 special features. I think he's amongst the kindest members of the bar as far as the junior bar is concerned. He is the fairest of the opponents, amongst opponents. And finally, he's an epitome of ethical standards. And I think in today's day and age, the ethical bar and standards which Chandar maintains is really a beacon for all young members of the bar to follow. So those are my few introductory remarks. Thank you.
Oh, whoops. Gaurav warned me. Well, I'll only say something which, picking from what Shyam said, I think whatever I have in life has really been given to me by this profession. And I've always felt that the only way that I can give back is by working on worthy causes and apart from, of course, all the generous clients who pay the bills, but I can translate that into doing a lot of pro bono work, and the only reason one can do that is that after I shifted to the Supreme Court in particular, I found that there is such a crying need for people to take up issues, all sorts of issues, not just environment and human rights and all, but even cases of indigent people, teachers, students. There are so many classes of people who need our help. And I would only say that if every one of us and all our brethren were to devote some time, just set some target, 5% of your time, 10% of your time, whatever works, to working on really causes that one considers worthy, and I think the world would be a better place. Thank you very much.
Our next awardee is Mr. C.R. Dua, the founder and chairman of Dua and Associates.
Well, it's a pleasure and an honor to be here. More so because I'm not in the courts that often, and many of the judges won't even know who I am. But I'm only evidencing the fact there is a lot of law outside the courts as well. And I have not done too badly. I started a firm, and since I came from a judicial background, many judges asked me, "What are you doing? what do you do? I'm going back into 70s and 80s. And I played tennis. It had given me exposure to the United States. I had a lot of lawyer friends who played tennis in the US. And I thought, there's more economics outside the courts of law and in the country. So there must be something there, which I found out. And fortunately, we are doing reasonably well as BAI Associates, the law firm. And I'm grateful for everyone who recognizes us, because I think now the younger generation is very well suited, and given the economic growth and political clout that India is going into, I think they have a fantastic future. Thank you very much.
Our next awardee is Ms. Farzana Behram Kamdeen. She is President, Bombay Incorporated Law Society and Managing Partner of FCB and Associates.
I am lost for words. This is an honor which I am deeply humbled to get. It has been a long journey. My parents, my in-laws, my husband, my son have all supported me throughout this journey, from starting as an article clerk with Vadya Gandhi, passing my solicitor's exam, thereafter starting my own firm, becoming a partner with Vadya Gandhi, then starting my own firm. It's the colleagues, the friends, the bar, the bench, who has all along supported me, and I'm truly humbled, and I'm grateful to all of you and the organization. Thank you.
Our next awardee is Shri Gaurav Banerjee, Senior Advocate, and our President would like to introduce him.
We have a special recognition for significant contribution to the field of ADR. And my first meeting with Gaurav was when late RKP Shankar Das, who used to bring out Indian Advocate as editor. So an article was written by Gaurav, and the journal was about to go to press. It was in the final reading. Then he said, you know, Gaurav has written on section 9 and of Arbitration Act and part 1, how it applies to international arbitration. And there are some new developments, he wants to revise it. So we stopped the press, and Gaurav came to the Bar Association chamber and did the revisions. So his commitment to the ADR has been very deep and abiding. He has been amicus in several matters before Supreme Court in trying to settle the law on arbitration. He is the moving force behind the Arbitration Bar of India and a member of Essex Inn. And it is truly a pleasure for the Bar Association to recognize him and confer this award.
Actually, I'm suffering somewhat from imposter syndrome. I was looking at the list of earlier awardees. You had Mr. Anil Devan, Ashok Bhai, K.K. Venugopal, Mr. Parasaran. So obviously, one is certainly nowhere in that class. So I won't talk much about myself. I just wanted to mention something about the Bar Association of India. I've seen it grow for so many years there was a tradition, I don't know whether the learned attorney is aware, that all the meetings of the Bar Association of India used to be held for many years in the office of the AG. I remember Mr. Soli Sarvapalli, Mr. Vanvati also. So I would request that that tradition be carried on. There has to be some quid pro quo for getting an award. Thank you.
And you know, the tribe has grown, so it can be only at the residence now.
Yeah, the attorney has an open house and an open heart, no problem at all.
And last but not the least, Shri Roshan Lal Jain ji. He is a lawyer practicing in Udaipur. He is a recognition for his practice in the district bar. And we have 3 generations of Mr. Jain here. His son and grandson are also here. So if we could give it. Yeah, all 3 lawyers, yes.
मैं मंच और कक्ष में जो सम्मानित हैं उनका आभार प्रकट करता हूं। साथ में बार एसोसिएशन ऑफ इंडिया का शुक्रगुजार हूं, आभारी हूं और धन्यवाद देता हूं कि हम जो लोग डिस्ट्रिक्ट लेवल पर वकालत करते हैं, सुप्रीम कोर्ट और हाई कोर्ट के जो एडवोकेट्स हैं उनमें, और हम डिस्ट्रिक्ट कोर्ट पे जो वकालत करते हैं, हमारे बहुत मेहनत। हम नोटिस से लेकर के, जवाब से लेकर के, दावे से लेकर के, रिटर्न स्टेटमेंट से लेकर के और इश्यू से लेकर के वहाँ तक हम काम करते हैं, लेकिन एविडेंस भी और आज इस मौके पर मुझे जो ये अवार्ड आपके हाथों से मिला है, मैं बहुत शुक्रगुजार हूँ। साथ में मुझे खुशी है कि मेरी 3 पीढ़ी, मेरा बच्चा, मेरा सन और मेरा ग्रैंडसन, हम तीनों इसी प्रोफेशन में हैं। मैं उम्मीद करता हूं कि इसी तरह से आप सुप्रीम कोर्ट, हाई कोर्ट के साथ साथ हम जो लोअर कोर्ट्स में प्रैक्टिस करते हैं उनको भी अगर इस तरीके से सम्मानित करेंगे तो हमारा करेज बढ़ेगा, हमारा उत्साह बढ़ेगा, हम और ज़्यादा काम करेंगे। और मैं पिछले 28 साल से यहाँ इसमें जुड़ा हुआ हूँ। नरीमन साहब, दीवान साहब, अनिल आपके फादर साहब, जेठमालानी जी, मतलब मैं क्या नाम गिनाऊं, मुझे सोली सोराब जी, मुझे सबके साथ काम करने का और इंडिया में कई जगह जो आपके जो कॉन्फ्रेंसेस होती है उसमें भाग लेने का अवसर मिला। आप लोगों ने याद किया, उसके लिए बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद, बहुत बहुत आभार।
Mr. Jain and his team from Udaipur have also brought some traditional turban which they want to facilitate the 2 honorable judges of Supreme Court. So if I may ask them to come forward. मुकेश जी. Thank you everyone for coming. I'll just conclude by thanking Honorable Justice Rishikesh Roy, Justice Koteshwar Singh, our Attorney General, all our guests, and especially who have come from outside Delhi, from Karnataka, Chhattisgarh, Bombay, Jharkhand, Tripura, Udaipur, everywhere.
भाई नाम पढ़ हाँ आईडी बोल दो
We have high tea. Please join us for high tea.
Two months back, I happened to bump into George Clooney and Amal in Lugano, in Switzerland. They have a house there. And they were just taking a stroll around this thing. And Lugano is a place where nobody disturbs. But India, we will disturb once we see our power couple taking a stroll. Yes. Yes, of course. Many. Thank you. Friends, there is some high tea and snacks served. Please join us to celebrate the evening. Thank you.
पांडे जी हाँ बस ऐसे ले लो बस ठीक है
एक पिक्चर लेना एक लेना है only this